So in the last assignment, you had to create a website, but I gave you all the images. So this time around, I want to show you how to create your own images so that you don't need me to provide the images for you. So we're gonna use a program called Adobe Photoshop Elements 12. You're gonna see the icon on your desktop. Photoshop Elements is a simplified version of Adobe Photoshop. So I'm gonna click on Photo Editor, and it'll bring me to my main window here. The first thing that you'll notice is the toolbar here on the left. I'm going to go to File, I'm going to go to New and start a blank new file. And just for the sake of practicing, I'm going to set it to 1000 by 800 pixels. So here's my canvas, and here are my tools here on the left. Alright, so as you'll notice as I click on different tools, this toolbar on the bottom will change depending on which tool I click. So the first tool that we're going to use is the paint bucket, which is used to put a solid color on the background. So I'm going to click on this tool, and you'll notice the menu on the bottom changes to match it. And I'm going to pick a color from here. Alright, the top one is the foreground color and the bottom one is the background color. So I'm going to click on the foreground color, and the way to use this color picker is to basically slide this slider up and down to get a general color. And then once you have that, you can go inside and kind of pick your specific color inside this box. So as I move around, you can see that color changing. Once you're happy with it, you can click on OK, and then I can click on my background to fill in my color. So that's the simplest way to put a solid background in. And next, we're going to talk about how to put a gradient in. And a gradient is a fade from one color to another color. So you'll see on the bottom here, it fades from kind of a teal to a black. So if I click on that box, it'll open up my gradient editor. And as you can see, there are a bunch of preset colors. If you find one close to what you like, you can go with that. And I can move these sliders left or right to kind of add more teal or more black to my fade. I can also, if I click underneath that line, you'll see a little hand form, and I can make another color. And then double click on that, and then you can change the color. So if you double click on a color, it'll bring up the color picker, and you can pick a new color. Once you're happy with it, click OK, and then basically you're going to draw a line to create the gradient. A long line creates a long fade, and a short line creates a short fade. Also, direction matters as well. So if I draw a line in one direction, it'll create a fade in that direction, and if I draw it in another direction, it'll create a fade in another direction. So there are several different types of fades. That was a linear fade. The next one's a radial fade. So it'll create a sort of a circular gradient. Basically, just play with each of these, and you'll see what each one does. And obviously, like how big or small I make that line impacts what the gradient looks like. Alright, so that's just a quick way to create a simple background for your document. Alright, so now I'm going to show you a different option for creating your background. So you're going to click on Graphics, the little plus, and it'll open up a menu for you on the right side here. If it doesn't already say it, you can click this drop down right here and go to Backgrounds. Alright, and once I get there, I'm going to pick a background of my choice here. So let's see, I'll pick this one. So you drag and you drop it right onto your background. Alright, so let's say I'm happy with this sort of marbly looking background, but I don't like the color. So I want to show you how to change the color of this background. So you're going to go up to Enhance on the top menu up here, and then I'm going to go to Adjust Color, and then Adjust Hue Saturation. Alright, so if I move the hue, basically it's going to add a tint to the background that I already have there. But as you can see, like when I move it to red, it doesn't actually show up red here because it's adding a tint to the background. But if I check off Colorize, it strips the original color out of the background. And now when I move that slider, it's going to be true to that color. So now as you can see, it's actually red when I slide over to red, or blue when I slide over to blue. So if I lower the saturation all the way down, it's going to go to black and white. Alright, so saturation is the color saturation. So the more I raise that, the more the background will be saturated with color. Alright, so I'm going to bring that up. And then once you're happy with it, hit OK. Alright. And just so you know, any image that you bring into Photoshop, you can do that same thing. You can go up to Enhance and change that color, the color settings on it. So next I want to show you how to add your own images to that background. So basically, you can use images from the internet for educational purposes, but make sure to cite your sources if you're going to be doing that. And I'll explain how to do that in a separate video. Alright, so let's pick a file from my hard drive here. So say I want to use this paintbrush picture here. So it opens up the paintbrush picture in a new tab, and I'm going to go over to select and then all, and then edit, copy, and then back to my original file here, edit, paste, and it'll basically paste that image on top. Alright, so from here I could click on this tool right here, is the move tool, so I can use that to move my picture around the screen. I can also use that to resize my image by grabbing these corners and stretching it out to fit. So I'm going to stretch it over the whole background, and then make sure to hit that check mark at the bottom once you're done. Okay, so now's a good time to introduce you to layers. So basically Photoshop is so powerful because it works in different layers, and layers are things that you can, it basically stacks different images on top of each other, and you can edit each layer independently. So I have my background layer, which is that blue, and then I have my brush layer here, and if I hit that little eye here, it'll hide that layer so you can see the layer below it. Alright, so you'll also notice the word opacity here. You're going to see this a lot in Photoshop. Opacity basically represents how transparent or non-transparent an image is. So opaque is the opposite of transparent. So if I lower the opacity, you're going to basically see the other background layer. So I'm going to lower the opacity a little bit more so you can see more of that background layer there. And then let's add our text. So basically on the toolbar again on the left, you're going to see the text tool, the T. Alright, so and as I click on that, you'll notice that the menu on the bottom changes to represent your different text settings. So basically just going to click in the middle of my screen and then type my name. Okay, and then hit the check mark here. Notice where your text layer came in. Mine actually came in below the paintbrush layer. So what I want to do is just click and drag that layer up above the paintbrush layer. Alright, so now it's on the top layer. And I can move it around by clicking on the move tool. Alright, I can resize it by grabbing that corner. So let me get it where I want it here. Alright, hit the check mark when you're happy with it. Alright, and if you want to go back in and edit that text, if you just double click on it, it'll bring you back into text editing mode. It will highlight the text for you, and then I can go in and change the font or change the size, make it bold. Oh, I want to show you this one feature. This feature allows you to warp your text. So if I click on this, the T with a little curve under it, it'll open up this little warp text menu, and I can use that menu to add an arc, let's say, to my text. Then I can use these sliders to adjust the kind of how much it arcs. So you can kind of distort your text in different ways. Alright, so let's say that I'm happy with it there. I'm going to hit OK. And then to get out of my text editing mode, I'll hit the check mark. Alright, and let me shrink this a little bit to make it fit again. Alright, so once again, whenever you're done editing, hit that check mark. Alright, and the last thing that I want to show you is how to add special effects to your text or to any other object that you've added in Photoshop. So to do that, we're going to go up to Layer and then Layer Style. And then the style settings. So in kind of the real Photoshop, you know, this is Photoshop Elements, kind of a watered down version, but in the real Photoshop there are more settings here that you could choose. But this one kind of keeps it simple with 4 different options. So I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up. So the first one is stroke. And stroke is basically an outline that you can add to either your text or whatever object you prefer. So I can adjust the size of that outline here. I can also adjust the color of that outline here. Alright, and then the next one is bevel. A bevel gives it kind of a raised 3D look. It's easier to see on like kind of more bubbly text, larger text. But you'll see as I move that size up and down, I can adjust kind of how much of that raised look it has. Alright, and then so the next one is glow. So I'm going to check this off. This one's a little bit harder to see, but I'm going to check off outer glow, and as I raise the size, you'll sort of subtly see the glow raising off the text. And as I raise the opacity, you'll see it a little more. Let me change the color to make it a little bit more visible. But again, it's a very subtle glow in this case. You can kind of see it. Alright, so the last one that I'm going to do is the drop shadow. So I'm going to move the distance so you can see that shadow kind of coming off the text. And then you can also change some other settings in there. You can change the size, which will make it blurry or sharp, or you can change the opacity to kind of make it more or less transparent. Alright, so once I'm happy with all of my settings, I can click OK, and I'm all set. And those are all of the skills that you really need to create your own banner and your own buttons for your next project. So essentially, in your next assignment, you're going to be designing an entire website from beginning to end, including all the graphics, using the different tools that we went over in this tutorial. So feel free to reference this tutorial again, and then go on to the comparison assignment. As always, if you have any questions, let me know.